Coming up on today's Locked On Dodgers, a couple of news notes and rumors from around the league, and answering a couple questions from you listeners. So that's what's on tap. So make sure to keep it Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. I'm Vince Samperio of Chevezuring Fiends, and today's episode I'll be going by myself, solo dolo. Got a few things on tap, a couple of news, notes, and rumors from around the league, and then taking on a couple of questions that you guys provided last week. So that's what we're getting into, and let's just hop right into it. But before all that, just want to say thank you and remind you to make Locked On Dodgers your first listen every single morning. We are free and available on all platforms and on YouTube. Check us out, tell your friends, do all that good stuff. Just moving around from some things that have come out here in the last week or few days in regards to let's start off with the shortstop position. And we still don't know the exact numbers. I talked about a little bit on the other day's episode of we weren't sure how close the Dodgers got to the Rangers 10-year, $325 million that they gave Seager. Jorge Castillo, the LA Times, said that ultimately they weren't close to meeting the Rangers' extravagant offer of $325 million over 10 years. We know that the Dodgers at one point had offered Seager $250 million over, I forget how many years, but it was an AAV of $31 million, which was close to $32.5 million that he's getting from the Rangers. But obviously it wasn't as many years, and it's interesting because, not interesting. It's probably what I said. They probably offered less years, more, I'm sure they upped it from the $250 million they offered them before, but I'm sure it was just less years, more higher AAV, and for Seager, you're a young guy. 10 years, $325 million is pretty good. I guess even if he doesn't make the playoffs the whole 10 years, he has a World Series. He's been in the playoffs. Obviously, that's not what he wants, and he believes the Rangers are going to commit money and resources and everything else to putting a winning team on the field. But still, just interesting to note there that the Dodgers ultimately weren't close. I don't know what that means. Were they not close money-wise, not close year-wise, not close both? I don't know. But yeah, that's where the Dodgers are at, and leads into other shortstop news, or not news, but kind of rumors. Blake Harris of True Blue LA listened to Jon Heyman's latest podcast, and on that podcast, Jon Heyman said he thinks it's between the Astros and Dodgers for Carlos Correa. Now, remember, anything Jon Heyman says is usually what Scott Boras wants him to say, which, using the Dodgers to get leverage or to get the Astros to pony up, is probably where that comes from, where that stems from. And honestly, also probably stems from the fact that there's not many teams left that either A, need a shortstop, or B, would be able to, or would be willing to spend a lot of money, or have the ability to spend a lot of money. The Red Sox were even mentioned, and they have Xander Bogaerts at shortstop. So I don't know what to make of this. Obviously the Dodgers have contacted them. At least the other report that wasn't from Heyman, that came from one of the Houston reporters. The extent of that contact, we don't know. And the fan base is always going to be divided on this subject because it is Carlos Correa. He was on the 2017 Astros. He did help cheat the Dodgers out of a World Series championship. He didn't show much remorse about it. He got angry at Cody Bellinger about it. And yeah, it's pretty much been that way. But I talked about this close to the end of the season, or back in October or early November. And if it were to happen, I'm more open to it than I would have been before. But it comes down to, unless they think that I don't know. It would depend. I would say of between Carlos Correa and Corey Seager, Carlos Correa would be one to take a shorter deal worth more money, average annual value yearly. I do think that would be the case. And in that case, yeah, it makes sense because you get a lot of people saying, well, why would they pay Correa but not Seager? And let's just say they offered Seager a 5-year, $200 million deal, 40 mil a year. And he said no. Let's say they offer Correa that same deal and he says yes. Well, that's 125 million less than Corey Seager. So they tried to pay Seager what they wanted to. He said no. And if Correa takes that same deal, that's a different story. I say that because I think Correa is a little more confident in his ability. Not saying Seager's not confident in his abilities, but I think Correa is a little more, I don't know, cocky, I guess. Well, obviously, yeah, but he's a little more cocky in the sense that he'd be like, all right, I'm going to take this 200 mil right now, 5 years. And then I think I would get contracts above 125 million after that. Because realistically, if he made 200 mil the first 5 years, and he makes 125 mil the next 5 years, then it would have been the same thing as if he had just taken a similar deal to Seager. And that's kind of where it sits. I do think Correa will age better at shortstop, and he's already a better defender. I do think he would stay at shortstop for the entirety of any deal. And it's a matter also of if the Dodgers get the sense that Trey Turner is not going to stay, or they've already talked to him and he didn't want to sign an extension, then unfortunately for him, if they did go after Correa, you know what, Trey Turner, you're going to have to play second base another year. And you probably don't love that idea, but, the Dodgers can't accommodate you for 1 year if you're going to leave anyways. And that's just the nature of it. So, yeah, if this were to happen, obviously we would have a lot more talk about it and how we feel as fans personally. I would say I'm more open to than I am before, and that's pretty much where I'm at now. Obviously, if it happens, your feelings will rise, and you'll know why or what you feel. But until that point, and especially with the lockout right now, we don't have to worry about it. But just interesting to note. And like I said, take that report with a grain of salt because Jon Heyman is usually a mouthpiece for Scott Boras, and it could mean nothing. It could mean something. We don't know, but just, I guess, have that thought in your mind if you want to think about something during this lockout, and that's how it goes. I'm going to come back and talk about a couple more little rumors and notes that came out from around the league, so make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. BetOnline has you covered, and they've got more odds, props, and lines than ever before on their new website. Go check it out, BetOnline, and see everything they got. And football season's heading into the playoffs, basketball season's heading into the midway point. Everything, all the sports that you need are at BetOnline, and they're your number one spot for all sports action this season. So head over to BetOnline on your laptop or mobile device and sign up today. And if you use the promo code Locked On, you'll get a 50% welcome bonus after your first deposit. Deposit some money, get 50% extra on top of that, all by using the promo code Locked On at BetOnline. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. Does this sound familiar? This scenario right here, does this sound familiar to you? You've got the game live on one device. You've got another device letting you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friends log in for the good stuff. Well, I'm here to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it's a great way to finally get your TV together. It brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes, no need to buy another device ever again, and the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can head over to directtv.com to find out more about DirecTV Stream. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. All right, let's get right back into this and talk a little bit about some good news on the Dodgers and with Dustin May. Dustin May, the Dodgers put out a video recently on their YouTube channel, and he talked a little bit about the injury. Um, Basically saying, he didn't know how to feel or how to react because he's never been in that situation before in terms of getting injured. It didn't sink in until his surgery of what exactly was going on and how things were going to go. And, the Tommy John surgery is a long process in recovery and rehab. But he said it's been great so far. Not much more than that. We did see May starting to throw a little bit couple months ago. And the fact that it's been great so far is a good note, and just goes to show that while the Dodgers, they will need pitching, a lot more pitching, but they have a guy on the way who would be able to help out at least maybe in the second half of the season, and that I don't know what the plan's going to be. Obviously, it's going to depend on how he feels and how the team is going. I feel like if Dustin May contributes next year, it's going to be in a Josh Hader type role, throwing 2 innings, maybe a couple times a week, and helping out on the back end of the bullpen and coming in key situations or maybe eating 2 to 3 innings at a time, whatever the case is. I feel like that's the role they bring him in. I don't know if they bring him in as a starter necessarily. Now, if they need starting pitching, and they say, take an extra month, get your arm built up to at least 75 pitches and give us, starter innings that way, that's possible. But at the end of the day, it's all going to depend on his recovery and how he does. But, it's a good time that it's going well, right? It's better than not going well. And, we look forward and we wish Dustin May a continued speedy recovery. Moving on to another pitcher in the Dodgers. Well, not on the Dodgers right now. Davis Say was talking on the radio, and he says that Don Mattingly and the Marlins had engaged Kenley Jansen in talks. Says this was, I would assume, before the lockout because they can't really have talks now. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think agents can talk to teams right now, but I'm not sure. Jeff would know better, but either way, Jansen, Marlins, and it's one of those things where Jansen. It's a weird situation. I thought this is for sure Jansen's last year, bar none, hands down, and then he went out and had a really good year and looked like a different pitcher, and then outright dominated in the postseason. And you're thinking, all right, maybe the Dodgers can get Jansen back. But obviously, when you pitch as well as Jansen did, other teams are going to want you, and other teams can probably give Jansen more money and a guaranteed closer position. Whereas the Dodgers, I don't know if they would offer as much money or they would, for sure guarantee him the closer role. They do have Blake Trinan for another year, so. Yeah. With Jansen, at this point, I do want him back, but not at the same salary he was making. Not at, even 15 mil a year would be pushing it a little bit. That's close enough to 16 mil he was making. So if you're Jansen, go get your money. And Davis Say, who usually has a couple players' ears a little more than others, I would imagine Jansen's one of those guys. He says he's going to take the largest contract he possibly can because for all intents and purposes, this is his last opportunity at a big contract in free agency after arguably being the best closer in baseball last year. Vasey's adding his wording at the end there. But at the end of the day, if he thinks Jansen's one for the biggest deal, it's possible. Jansen did take a little bit of a pay cut of sorts when he came back to the Dodgers last time. I don't think he's going to afford them the same thing. Obviously, if it's really close, a matter of maybe a couple mil, Jansen, I would imagine, would feel more comfortable coming back to the Dodgers. But I don't know. I don't know. Jansen, as much as he loves the Dodgers, Dodger fans haven't necessarily treated him the best. And he's aware of why and the perception, but still, you might want to go somewhere else and get more money, and whatever the case is, that's how it is. And the Dodgers are pretty set at their bullpen. Like, their bullpen's the strength as of this moment right now. They're getting Kenley and Caleb Ferguson back, so hopefully that would be two guys that slide into those later innings. They have Blake China that could slide into the ninth inning. They have Seiya. They have other guys. They signed Daniel Hudson. So Dodgers aren't going to act in a panic for Kenley Jansen, and they're probably going to let him explore and see what he wants to do. And maybe, I don't know. I don't know how the Dodgers negotiate. It could be a matter of, all right, Jansen, Kenley, go ahead, go check everything out, and then bring us the offer before, and we'll tell you. Or if it's a matter of, this is our offer, this is all you're going to get. If you want to leave, go ahead. If you want to stay, this is the offer. I don't know how the Dodgers negotiate, but we'll see what happens with Kenley Jansen. Of course, like I said, a lot of this stuff is not going to matter until the lockout's over, but it's still fun at least to have some rumors to talk about, I guess. The other one came for a guy that's not on the Dodgers. With the guy we talked about before, Seiya Suzuki, and the fact that the Red Sox, Yankees, and Blue Jays were said to be aggressively pursuing the outfielder. The Dodgers weren't mentioned in this report, but the Dodgers were mentioned having interest in Suzuki. In other reports, that 30-day window that Suzuki had to negotiate with all MLB teams is on hold as of now because of the lockout. And so we won't know anything about this until the lockout's over. But when you're competing with those three teams that are all in the same division, that one of those teams didn't make the playoffs last year, even though they had, 91 wins, you're dealing with a little bit different. Kind of like we talked about last year, you're dealing with a little bit different. I'm not saying those teams are desperate, but when you're dealing with money specifically, you can't win when someone overpays. And if one of those teams overpays or pays more, then that's just the way it goes. Not too much else on the Seiya Suzuki front because, like I said, there's a lockout right now. The last little bit of news and notes came in that same tweet earlier from Blake Harris about Jon Heyman on his podcast. And he says the Dodgers seem most likely for Freddie Freeman if he doesn't return to Braves. Again, take that with a grain of salt for whoever fed him that information. It's likely to put pressure on the Braves. If the Yankees and Dodgers are two of the teams being named as Braves, brass, you're probably a little worried about it. Definitely Braves fans are a little bit worried about it because those are two teams that could just say, you know what, Freddie, you want 6 years, 180 mil? Here, do it. Take it. I'm not sure. I don't know. For me, it wouldn't sit right as me being Freddie Freeman that we just won the World Series. We just whatever. 6 years, 180 mil isn't completely out of the realm of something he should be able to ask for. And for the hesitation, the fact that he's not signed, I don't know, it probably bugs me a little bit. And Dodgers, take advantage. Go make them happy. That's all I can say. I'm in on the Freddie Freeman train. Let's go do it. But that also, like I said, remains to be seen. Want to take a quick minute right now to once again thank you and remind you to make Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. We're here every weekday morning for you, bringing you everything we can while this team and league is in lockout. But we're going to still bring it to you every weekday morning. We got a couple of things on tap. I know Jeff's trying to line up some guests the rest of the way, so make sure to stick around with us, and let's keep going. I got two questions that I'm going to take on, three questions, really one topic, and I'm going to go run through the questions real quick and then I'll talk about it. First one is from @PhoneGuy92399. He says, do you think Ryan Pepiot will factor into the Dodgers' plans in 2022? @EZBets says, which of the young pitchers in the farm system can we possibly see on next year's staff? He mentions Andre Jackson, Pepiot, Bobby Miller, Landon Knack, Clayton Beeter. And then Pablo @Robert Below asks, which free agent starting pitchers are the Dodgers going to sign? He mentions Kershaw and Wood. Although I think he wasn't aware that Alex Wood signed back with Giants, so he's not one of those. And this is the Dodgers' biggest question mark at the moment. Obviously we talked about Correa and Freeman and all that kind of stuff, but the Dodgers are set with a starting lineup right now. The Dodgers are set. Now their bullpen and bench, not the bullpen, their bench could use a little more help. Or if the DH is a thing, then they could use a little more help. But it's pretty set. They got a legit above average starter at every position. Bullpen, like I said, is pretty solid right now. And if they bring back Jansen, even more solid. Starting rotation is Walker Buehler, Julio Diaz, which is a pretty formidable duo. Then after that, you got some unknowns and some question marks and nobody, I guess. You got Heaney, and then you got Tony Gonsolin, and you got David Price right now. So, yeah, free agent starting pitchers, Carlos Rodon's one of the only really ones left that would be a significant upgrade to this team. And you got Clayton Kershaw. That's pretty much it. Other than that, you're down into Andrew Heaney territory where you're maybe taking a chance on a guy, 1-year deal, seeing what he can do, and hoping for the best. And so I don't think, Rodon's still an option. And I don't know. It's interesting to me the way the Dodgers handled this free agency, especially from a starting pitching standpoint, just because money is just money, and going after guys via trade, which is what they might have to do, or which they kind of have to do at this point, means that you're giving up assets and then money in the end of it. And I don't know. I don't think the Dodgers farm system is in the place to be putting more assets or giving up more assets. Now, obviously, they can replenish in the draft and everything else, and they drafted a lot of arms in this last draft. So maybe they believe in that. But the Stroman deal, none of the deals that were signed by these starting pitchers were anything ridiculous. Nobody got $30 million a year. Robbie Ray, Mark Stroman, Kevin Gausman, nobody was getting $30 million a year. They're getting $25 million a year, basically around there. So it was, I don't know, telling if they didn't like those guys, I guess, or I don't know. I honestly would like to know and understand what they were thinking in free agency. Now, if they think, like I said, they can go get starting pitching and not have to give up crazy assets, then by all means, go ahead and do so. If they think they can get by, bringing back Kershaw, they think you can get by with what they have. Ryan Pepiot, Andre Jackson become more of rotation stalwarts than originally maybe thought of. And then you go get one more starting pitcher at the deadline. Maybe that's the case what they're thinking. The lockout could end next week and Freeman could have 2 more starting pitchers by the week after that. And all this conversation is moot, but we just don't know. And it, I just don't know what the thought process was. And they probably have a different view on the Dodgers farm system than I do. But I think we're have a little bit of PTSD as Dodger fans because of last year. Nobody really came up from the minors and contributed in a crazy significant way, or at least none of the guys they thought on offense. And you think of, maybe we shouldn't be trading more. But at the end of the day, the Dodgers have a window that they're trying to go after. And, it's a matter of how they want to handle things. And if they want to give away more talent, that's maybe a little bit closer to the big leagues, depending who they trade with, or a little bit of talent that's a little bit further away from being in the big leagues. That's how they're going to handle it. But in terms of the younger players, Ryan Pepiot is definitely going to factor into the Dodgers 2022 rotation somehow. It might not be on opening day, being the fifth starter or fourth starter, whatever the case. But, as we've seen with Dodgers and as we've seen with pitching in general, there's going to be injuries, there's going to be issues, there's going to be, something that comes up where Ryan Pepiot is probably going to make 10 to 15 starts next year, I would imagine. Andre Jackson, same boat. He might make 5, 10, 15 starts next year just because of different reasons. And those two definitely for sure, because Andre Jackson already pitched in the big leagues last year. Pepiot was right on the doorstep. I know Pepiot had a little bit of issues once he got to AAA, but that AAA is a weird league, and he's probably just figuring things out and finding his way. And with that changeup, even if he just had fastball changeup, he'd be a guy that can get you through a lineup 2 times. And if he can find that third pitch or solidify that third pitch, then he can be a guy that for sure helps the Dodgers next year. In terms of the other young guys, Bobby Miller, Landon Knack, Clayton Beater, I would imagine they all, find their way at least on the mound for the Dodgers at some point next year. Because the Dodgers are always gonna need arms to fill in, and those are the next guys up. It's Pepiot and Jackson, and then it's those three guys probably up next in terms of arms. And last year we saw the Dodgers call up a lot of names. A lot of us had maybe not heard of, more so for the bullpen rather than the rotation. So next year, I think it'd be a little bit more for the rotation rather than the bullpen. But like I said, that remains to be seen. But I expect all three of those guys, Beater, Knack, and Miller, to make a pitch for the Dodgers in 2022. I expect Pepiot and Jackson to make 5 to 10 starts, 5 to 15 starts for the Dodgers next year. And like I said, the Dodgers could go the route of, we have a good offense, we have a good bullpen, and we can get by with not as great starting pitching to start the year, and then at the deadline go get the best available starting pitcher. And that is a strategy, and that is a way to do it. And, to be fair, and honestly, from what we've seen from the postseason, starting pitching can be a factor, but if it's not a factor, it's not the biggest deal in the world. We've seen the Dodgers get beat by great starting pitching with Scherzer and Strasburg in 2019. We've seen the Dodgers get beat with okay starting pitching this past year. None of those pitchers really went too deep into the games. The Braves bullpen and all those arms ended up being the savior of that series and shutting the Dodgers down. We've seen the Dodgers win with, they had probably a little bit more starting pitch. Buehler was pretty good that year. Julio did what he needed to do. Kershaw was pretty good in 2020. And then just the fourth starter, the way they handle Gonson and May, we've talked about before. But so, yeah, I don't know what the Dodgers have up their sleeve. I don't know if they're going to go trade for starting pitching. I don't know if they're going to try to run it with the way they got, bring back Kershaw and run it with those guys and Pepiot. You're in line, you and Andre Jackson fighting for the fifth starter spot. So that's very possible. But I do know that there's a plan in place. And for the most part, Andrew Friedman, when he has a plan in place, he gets it done. And I guess that's what we have to have faith in right now as Dodger fans. So that's going to do it for today's episode. That's going to do it for me today. Thank you all for listening. Make sure to make Locked On Dodgers your first listen every morning. We'll be back tomorrow probably taking more questions from listeners. I don't know if we'll get any more news and notes like we did on today's episode. But either way, we'll be back tomorrow. Probably Jeff will be back with me. And make sure to make your second listen of the day Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets is hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all platforms. For us, thank you for being around. And if you're a new listener, thank you. If you're an old listener, thank you. Either way, start listening every weekday morning, and we will continue to thank you and appreciate you. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Dodgers on YouTube. If you want to see our faces for some reason, some people like that. Some people like YouTube. I'm not a big YouTube person, but if you're a big YouTube person, then go subscribe. Do all that good stuff. If you want to follow us on social media, we are on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff is on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vince Samperio. DMs are open on all those accounts if you ever have a question, comment, or concern. You can also route that via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via text voicemail with the number 323-863-LOCK. That's 5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be with us when you get in your car or if you're at home. Text My Device Play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.